And we are live. I'm here with Steve Elswick of Tesla Tech. Steve has been doing free energy, anti gravity disclosure work for 30 years, over 30 years now,
Pushing 40.
pushing 40. Steve is the OG of OG, so I people call me an OG. Man, I'm a young blood compared to Steve here. Um, Steve was kind enough. I went to the Tesla Tech conference in 2009 with a buddy of mine, and I was just starting my YouTube channel. And Steve was nice enough to let me in with him to the Tesla Tech conference free with a media pass, and I'll never forget that. He's always been a great guy, and I've been trying to cover as much of this as possible. He's got a website here. This is Steve. This is your YouTube channel. Are you on Twitter or any other platforms or anything?
Basically, just YouTube. I do have Facebook, but I really don't update it that much. I do all my stuff on YouTube right now, and how to, and how
So
to we do our live stream.
so I know a bunch of guys that are just getting into free energy now. And how many free energy machines and inventions have you seen over the years?
There's tons of machines. It's a matter of what works and what doesn't, you know,
Right, right.
and what you're looking for to actually do.
And
Yeah.
then the repairs too. So some of this, if it's free, but there might be maintenance involved or other things. I don't know. Um,
Well, when I talk about free, I'm not talking about you know cost wise. I'm talking about getting more energy out than you're putting into any given device.
right.
Okay.
Have you worked at you? I've seen a bunch of those water powered vehicles. There was a guy driving the scooter around that he said he was saying was being run on the water and everything. Um, I These people all come to Tesla Tech and show off their stuff, right?
Either Tesla Tech or the former International Tesla Society out of Colorado Springs, and I think the gentleman you're talking about is Stan Meyer, who had a water car, and he spoke at our conference. The problem is, some of these guys they have a good talk, but they just can't walk the walk or bring the actual device there. And that's
Yeah.
where we put emphasis on hardware over hot air. Uh, we have an overabundance of hot air as it is.
An overabundance of hot air and not much. What was the other one? What was the other term you said? You said hot air or
Hot air versus hardware.
hardware? Yeah, hardware. Got it. Yeah. What do you guys say? Let's get a one for hardware and two for hot air.
So
What do you guys prefer out in the audience there? Who's awake? Let's see how the live chat is doing. One if you prefer hardware, or two if you prefer hot air. Yeah, I'd say we're gonna get a universal voting on this one, but there'll be a few jokers in the house. Um, the best free energy device is a stolen diesel generator. Yeah, that's a good one. I like it. Too bad we can't get some of that. Yeah, that element 115 and blow some hot air. But the funny thing is that steam is hot air. That's what runs most of our power plants. Or even nuclear. They use the heat energy to make steam, and then the steam runs a turbine, and the turbine is what pushes the generator and powers our three-phase electrical grid. So even you know
but that hot air is actually a saturated water. You know,
Yeah, it's not really air. It's actually H2O. That's just gas phase. Yeah.
and there's only one turbine in the world that can run on saturated steam, and that's the Tesla turbine. All other turbines will be destroyed. Yeah.
Really.
Yes.
And Tesla turbine. And so you've had. So what's the deal? Is a lot of these old conferences are all up online. You've gone through and uploaded a lot of the old presentations and stuff. Can I find Stan Meyer's presentation?
Sure. Um, Wait a minute, let me think on that one. Not Stan Meyer, because although I have the Tesla Society videotapes now,
Oh,
I
this
got
is
them all converted to DVDs now. That's what I'm working on. But there are people who worked on Stan Meyer stuff, like Maury King would be one.
yeah.
Max Miller. Max Miller is a big one. I believe in 2016 was a good year for the Water as a Fuel group. And we have Malcolm Bendall, but he's more on the geek side. Okay.
Right. I seen that Bendall was there last year.
Yeah, and I'll be putting those up here in a couple of weeks from last year.
So these are definitely underviewed. There's a gold mine of material here, guys. If you haven't checked this page out already, the Tesla Tech Conference has been doing free energy and anti-gravity and all kinds of giving a free platform to anyone with. Would you say more hot air than hardware, though? I mean,
We get precedence to hardware, and like this year when some people didn't show up, okay, because that always happens. I got people who actually had hardware there to come on stage, So if you come to our conference, expect to see the real deal, and if not the real deal, a chance to expose the fraud, and a lot of the guys are not shy about asking the tough questions, and we try to get it all. I first started this back in 1984, and we had some people like Toby Grotzen. He was one of the founders, and he put together the first conference in 1984. And the whole emphasis was to promote Tesla because it's a centennial year for the IEEE, and Tesla was a theme, and it's grown ever since. We made Tesla respectable in the colleges. When I first come in there, college professors were real leery of coming to these conferences, and it's only because we were doing it with the IEEE, which I was a student member at the time, that a lot of professors showed up, and then we went from there and had real formal proceedings and everything, hard science, and you have we stretch the envelope a lot, but the main thing is to get real equipment there so you can demonstrate experimental science over theoretical science. But these days, you can say that we've gone into a phase called computational science, where you have a theory, you do the computations, and they really don't go back into the experiments. Well, you need to do the experiments because it's only through experimentation and observation that you can make a forward, can move forward. And so I don't know. We just need to have more experimenters out there, and we don't seem to have enough people out there that can twist a wrench, screwdriver, move a pair of pliers. So,
all that.
Okay. Could you combine the Tesla turbine and Griggs hydrosonic pump?
So a Tesla turbine converts fluid momentum into torque, correctly? Is that my understanding of the Tesla turbine? It's just like a. I remember the guy that made them out of a bunch of CDs.
Yeah, they're a flat disc, okay? But the thing is, a Tesla turbine is the only turbine in the world that can burn a solid. You can burn a solid and not destroy it right there in the turbine, okay? And they've done that. We have one of our back issues has all the results of where they were using sawdust, for instance, as a fuel. And had no damage on the Tesla turbine. They ran regular turbine and destroyed it within minutes. So you can have a liquid, you can have a gas, or solid, and is reversible. If you can use that as a source for the torque, or you could turn it and use it as a pump. You know,
Right. It will work as a pump, right? So what do you need what do you need a Griggs hydrosonic pump if you already got a pump with the Tesla turbine? I don't know what the I gotta look up what the Griggs hydrosonic pump is.
and I'm thinking, if I remember right, man, that's an old. I think you're talking late '80s, early '90s is when I heard about the Griggs pump on that. Yeah, and it was more of a heater. It was for heating as a heat source.
Oh,
And
like
maybe that's what we're looking for.
it creates heat when you pressurize it. Oh, this thing, yeah, this water crusher thing. Remember this drum?
Yeah, I think the cavitation created immense amounts of heat, and it was considered an over energy device based on that, or they were trying to make it into one.
Huh, right.
But that's, like I say, years.
That was an interesting one. Yeah, where it had all those little cavities, so you create tons of supercavitation in there.
Yeah.
Supposedly, that would produce like cold fusion effects, and whatnot.
It's supposed to get hot fast. Yeah.
Right, because you're actually like killing hydrogen atoms and fusing them into helium or something, or supposedly, I don't know, but
But we've had
where the energy would come from, unless it's 0 point energy and it's coming from the vacuum. It's just a way to pull it from the vacuum. But yeah, I've seen. Yeah, these are interesting. The Griggs cavitation heaters.
and I was more focused on the Tesla turbine back then. You know,
Right, right. I remember there was a bunch of people finding ways to build them. Like the guy was doing them from CDs. He said you could recycle old, antiquated technologies, and
and you had like people like Jake Purcell. He was a pioneer on it.
yeah,
And he was trying to develop an aircraft that used Tesla turbines for a power source. And there's Jeff Hayes, and Jeff's been actually was at my conference this year. But anyway, I've known Jeff since the mid '80s. I mean, and he's went around and he's put all this information together on these Tesla turbines. He went to see people like Jake Purcell, and there's another guy, Max Girth, that has this thing called disc flow pumps. But they don't like the term Tesla turbine. I think they're trying to protect their patents that they have on it. And that's the thing about the Tesla turbine is all this stuff is uh, public domain. At this point. So I think it's great. Seeing that the Tesla turbine. I have a feeling it's going to be making a comeback soon.
interesting. Yes, how he came up with these designs like 100 years ago. Some of them, and let me just see cavitation pump. It's cavitation, but not a cavity, a centrifugal pump. Well, that's a little different. That's like this.
All these turbines will have like uh, little buckets to catch, and because they have those buckets are what gets destroyed when it starts cavitating. Okay, and because the Tesla turbine don't have any of those buckets, you can't destroy it that way. And I've seen a fireman had a little pump. He made a little pump about the size of my fist, and with that, he could put a full blast through a fire hose. Uh, so you can see how small these things can be and still put out quite a bit of force. And you'd use them as a pump whenever you need what they call laminar flow, which does not tear the material apart. If you get this nice laminar flow going, and it just pulls the material along without ripping it apart. and they use it for things like medicines, like when you want to mix the organics in that without tearing them apart. So Frito Lay's use them to pump chips from one vat to another because they don't want to destroy their chips. Yeah, because there's no blades, per se. Um, they work, and the biggest thing they in the design would be the spacing between each disc. Yeah,
Right. The geometry of the actual. So let's. I want to look up the Tesla turbine, the actual patent, so people can see how this works. Let's just see some images of the whole construction of it, because it was like a bunch of it looks like a bunch of CDs like stacked up with this specific spacing between them.
and you notice like there's these holes in the middle.
Yeah. There's like I thought it was just gaps or something. What's the design with those? The three like the spokes, like it looks like a tire.
Yeah, that's where the water goes in or out, and then it goes to the outer edges. You see,
Oh, so like a centrifugal pump.
you know, it's and the thing about it is you have like a vortexian motion going on in there, and vortex is the way nature moves energy from one place to another. You know, is through vortexes, electrical. Uh,
So even a photon is a vortex.
all of
Yeah,
them are moving in
because
a
the
vortex.
photon, how it's formed. I've always said it's formed. The formation of a photon is always is like a vortex, because when Richard Feynman graduated with his PhD, his dad asked him, "Where does the photon come from?" When the electron drops in energy state and the atom gives off a photon, well, where does the photon come from? And the electron has to be doing some kind of vorticular dance that produces the photon. So I've always said that's just like big part of how nature is operating on the fundamental level. Yeah, see, this is the plates between. There's like these gaps, and the water comes in,
In the
sucks in
middle.
the sides, and then shoots out the edges as the thing spins at real high velocity.
Well, it depends. It either comes in from the inner and shoots out the middle, or comes in the middle and shoots out the edge, depending on if it's running in pump mode or turbine mode.
It's wild how there's no blades though, and how does it pull the water without blades? Is it just like the surface tension, or
Yeah,
surface?
it's what they call a boundary layer effect. And the first layer is pulled, and each layer pulls the other layer along, you know, and that's the way it works. And
Oh yeah, these boundary layer effects. Yeah, okay. So it's like drag. It's like how airflow works, and drag. There can be okay.
and one of the things about it is the advances have been made in material sciences since Tesla's time means that we could do a lot more now with this kind of technology than he could back then, you know, because we have better materials to work with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could have the material for like the surface of what these things are made of, and also like what microstructures might do to the surface. So I remember a couple years ago, I went to some free lectures up at MIT, and one of them was on pollen grains, pollen grain microstructures. And he had examined these pollen grains that had these microstructures, and he realized that like their micro air currents flow like a lot different. So some of these spores had been like, basically they've been like adapted to be really wind to be really good in the wind, and carry really far. And there was a specific type of spore he was talking about. I gotta find out what that was, but it looked like these footballs, um, footballs with uh, striations. They were like these curvy. I wish I had taken notes on the guy's name. That was a while back, but I thought it was super interesting that maybe if you could coat the surface of these plates with these microstructures, it would have super high turbulence and stuff. Like the same way they can do this with like lithography and hydrophobia, right? So they can make hydrophobic materials by etching the surface. Um, Hydrophobic materials. I'm not going to find it on Google image search, maybe. But yeah, see, like there's something about the lithography induced hydrophobic surfaces of silicon wafers with excellent anisotropic wetting properties. Yeah, you can look this up. This was really cool too. So the liquid won't even touch this stuff or stick to it. So if you had like the surface, I don't know what it would do to the nanostructures, what it would do to the Tesla turbine. But yeah, you're right. New technologies combined with this older ideas and stuff would be super neat.
And in fact, I seen a device which is a Tesla turbine that they used to measure other Tesla turbines, as like an offset to power, to measure the power and the torque on these things. Uh, but torque is a very important thing. And that brings me to like, I worked on a device one time and it shouldn't work, according to conventional electrical theory, and I saw like 3 amps in, 30 amps out. Okay. And that, you can't really go by because you can always slide the scale on a meter on that. But because it's actually turning a device, you know, you could believe it because with torque, it either turns or it don't, you know.
Right. So this is one example of people how a lot of free energy machines trick the into thinking that you're getting more out than you put in, and it's called a buck boost converter or a buck boost generator. So it's a type of DC to DC converter that has an output voltage magnitude that's either greater than or less than the input voltage magnitude. So
But there you're just dealing with voltages, and what you really want is power, you know. Um,
yeah, that's voltages. So power would be actually amps or watts. So right, that's
oh,
so volts is
Power
different.
is watts. Power is watts.
Hours watts. So
Watts is amps times volts.
right,
Okay, and the big deal is like on a Tesla, like a Tesla coil, right? You're taking like could be like 12 volts and you convert it into hundreds of thousands of volts, but you're taking a current and converting it to no current basically. So there it's not really, it's a converter, but you're not really getting any over unity. Now the Tesla magnifier, okay, which Tesla built in Warncliffe and that's different because there you're not only getting hundreds of thousands of volts, he's drawn, you know, hundreds of thousands of amps. I mean, it's the most powerful machine in the world because he had the amps and the volts, not just one or the other, you know. So, and that's what everyone aspires to do, you know, eventually. That's the goal of it. And so you got the Colorado Springs notes. I used to live in Colorado Springs, and we had our museum about 4 blocks from where his actual lab would have stood. So we try to get as close as possible.
yeah, right. That's crazy.
Yeah. And then if you see the picture where Tesla is sitting inside this machine with all these huge sparks going around, uh, that's a fake. That was uh, multiple exposures there, you know. And I could do that, and then he'd go in and sit in there and take another exposure, so it looked like he was sitting in that with all those millions of volts flying around him.
Oh, so that wasn't a
That was a reality. Yeah,
really?
that's there. Yeah, he wasn't sitting there when all those machines were going off. That's a double exposure.
Yeah, huh?
See, we also had a, right. It says at the end, the photo was a promotional stunt. But yeah, Tesla's quite the showman. He realized that he had to capture the imagination of people to get them interested in this stuff. You know, and I think he was quite successful. Um, if you ever notice the growth of each generation has its own uh, fascination or obsession. And like in the 1920s, it was like radio. Everybody's building these radios, and ham radios, you know. And then by the 50s, and that was cars, and then from cars we went to muscle cars, and then we started getting into computers, you know. And now look at them. Um, Today we're doing my artificial intelligence. I think is a hot ticket now. So each generation will have its own uh, niche, of exploration. But we need to get people back to where they are actually building some of this stuff. I don't think you really understand electricity until you actually build these things. Um, and we used to have a little book called Tesla Coil, and it had the plans to build a Tesla coil. And a guy came to for our exhibit that we had in the mall. He brought his thing in, and he built like a secondary. For the core of the secondary, he used the fiberglass core of a hot water heater, and used like scrap wire, like about 12 gauge wire. He used to make the secondary windings. For the primary, he used like a scrap copper out of a refrigerator. And then for the capacitors, he used window glass from old windows. He had laying around glass with pieces of metal in between them, like sheet metal. And he built it basically out of junk, and that's how you get to learn more about what you're doing is when you actually do stuff out of junk. And I think, anyway, I've seen these capacitors built out of jars, like the mason jars, just like Tesla would have done. you know. And this one person, what stuff would he have as good if Tesla was a faker? Well, Tesla wasn't a faker. That picture was a fake. The equipment's real. He had it running. He'd take the exposure. Then he'd go set in that for another, for his picture. So he'd look like it was in there. It wasn't that the stuff was fake. Yeah. So.
So what do you think about has anything like what's the coolest thing that's come across your desk in 30 years besides the Tesla? I mean, Tesla's like rediscovering old stuff, but has anyone come out with anything new or anything like really revolutionary or remarkable that was like, oh wow,
It's not rediscovering old stuff. If you go up to the uh, leaflet I put up, the Kipper plan, it's one of the attachments I put up in the online there. Did you see it?
so it's on your this is on your page or is it on in an email?
It's the thing I uploaded to the stage there on StreamYard.
Oh, I gotta go to your page. Hold on YouTube here.
Not on YouTube, but on the StreamYard.
Nope, I don't think that's it. It's on StreamYard. I'm looking at the private chat. Oh, this thing. I'll share yours.
That's the from the our video on demand. If you go on my website, click on that, it'll take you to the videos from this year that we are selling on video on demand, and it's like $99 for all of them, plus more. We have like 30 some odd hours. But the other one,
What's this website? Where can people find that?
TeslaTech.info.
What's that?
TeslaTech.info. That's
Tesla
my
Tech. TeslaTech.info, guys. Just so. What's Steve's connection to John Peterson?
John has spoke at our conference this year, and he's also been on my show about one time. You know, yeah, if you go to TeslaTech.info, and this image will be on there, and you click on that, it takes you right to where you can get those videos. But I'm looking at the other image I put up there, right next to it. I don't know. There we go. Yeah, the Kipper motor. That's Kipper. He's from Australia, but he lived in Arizona at this time, and what we call the Arizona Outback, which is the middle of nowhere. You know, he lived so far in the Outback, the cops would never go back there because you can't tell. Well, before GPS, you couldn't tell where the boundaries were. You know, and so he's totally off the grid. And he told me he could make free energy, and so he come to my shop, you know, and we built this thing down below that bundle of wires and everything, and that's the Kipper motor. Now that thing there is very simple. Let's see. Yeah, there you go. It's very simple. You have like the alternator and the DC motor. You know, it's a little per mag motor. It's a 3 amp per mag motor, and it's supposed to be driving the 12-volt alternator. Okay, and they're both tied to the battery. Okay, up on your right there. And now that should never work. That should never work because what should happen, okay, is that motor should just drag down the battery even more. And we had a dead battery on top of it. I mean, it was like 9 volts, you know. And when we put it together, first of all, I thought Kipper was just a sloppy wiring guy, because he'd take and he'd pull the wire out like that, you know, and then clip it, you know, and then spring together, you know. And he's about 6 foot, so each wire was about 6 feet, you know. And so we had 4 6-foot wires, 2 going from the battery to the DC motor, 2 going from the alternator to the battery. So there's 4 wires there. And it's a mess. You saw on the first page where a rat's nest it looked like. And I'm just thinking, man, this is really sloppy, you know, because we don't need that much. But when we hooked it up to the battery, you hear this, you know, as it just can't even move. So I took and twisted the alternator to get it going, overcome the resistance, and it started moving very slowly, like. Then Kipper gets in there and says, "This ain't right." And he starts separating out the coils, and then all of a sudden, it's like, pow! It starts taking off, you know. And that's what I mean. Torque. It's all about torque, you know, because that should not move that alternator, you know, like that. And at the end there, it's almost like the alternator was pulling the DC motor around. Now the question is, where was this energy coming from? That battery, you know, like it was like 9 volts, and we had the caps off, and we had put water in it, you know, and you just see the water's boiling up, boiling up, boiling up. It's like, wow, holy smoke, this thing's gonna blow up, you know. And if we don't put a load on it, so we turn it off, we put that little switch in there, and he had a what do you call it, an inverter. So we went out and got an inverter, put it on it, and then we plugged a 100-watt lamp in it, right? And turn it back on, and I'll be damned, it went faster, you know. It was insane, you know. And that's when we put together these plans and everything, because we thought, gee, you know, this is it, you know. And and it worked for 3 weeks. And then even when it was dying, because we got a reading of 3 amps on the DC motor going in, and we got 30 amps coming out in the alternator, which was supposed to. But we tried putting an amp. Instead of using the clip-on ammeter, we tried putting in um, an inline ammeter like you have in a car, and it blew up in my hands. It's like, wow, there's a lot of real energy here. Thing is, it only lasted 3 weeks. And I'm trying to figure out, why is it, why did it die? We're trying to figure that out. These people from Canada told Chip, look, you come work with us, and we'll give you $1 million and everything, right? But you can't work with Steve, So they pulled me out of there, and and later on, I run into him after about a year. They start calling him a fraud and everything, and I defended his honor. What I did there, and he thanked me for doing that. And he told me that they built bigger ones, and even on the big ones, they kept running this 3-week issue there. And the question is, what was it? Instead of trying to figure it out, they just wanted to call him a fraud and claim they was doing it with microwaves. And these people don't have a clue, what it takes to do microwaves, because to put that much energy out in a microwave, that's a feat in itself, because there's only one place that microwave could have come from, and that would have been under the hood of his car or his truck, because I live in the middle of nowhere too, So we have never been able to figure out that 3-week thing. I kind of think that it may be that we live in the space-time continuum here, in which you can access one of the dimensions with a 6-foot aperture, okay? Because that was the antenna was 6 feet. And then with the 6-foot aperture there, it would like punch a hole in this fabric, and it would start self-annealing, just like when you take a big rock and throw it in a tar pit, you got a hole there and it starts filling itself in and healing it, right? Maybe that's what we're dealing with here. I don't know, but at least we try to give it a shot. And then life intrudes, and all of a sudden you find out you have to actually go out and earn some money to stay alive, and that's how they get you. And I have all this stuff available. If anyone wants to drop me an email, steve@testatech.info, I can email you a copy of this PDF, which has the plans out and everything, tells you exactly what you need to build and what we saw, And I've only known about 2 other people that was able to get to work, and
it's just a regular lead acid battery, right?
it was a deep cycle battery off my ex-wife's RV. It was a dead one. Like I say, scrap material. The only new thing on here was the alternator, which we had just walked down to the Napa store and picked off right off the shelf, and the permanent motor we got from Granger. And that little V-belt there, and the wire. They come in like these little rolls of 12-gauge wire there for automotive. You buy that in Napa. All that is. That box, is just scrap, laying around the shop and everything. Sometimes I think more science gets done in people's garages than they do in these fancy labs. It
all depends on the drive of the person doing it. If some people are motivated and interested, they're gonna do it. But there's a lot of willing grad students as well at universities who have access to a lot better equipment and materials and supplies sometimes too. So no, it's a constant progress. But I mean, there's been a lot of people claiming that they're going to have these, and I'm just like, I really want to test one and have it proven work, and show everyone that because this defies everything we know about Lenz's law and conservation of energy and all that theory and stuff. Unless this is tapping into some other like energy source somehow. I don't see like how it just what do you tell the skeptics? And then have you built one of these yourself? And when was this? This was
This is just before 2000, you know, and that's when I still lived in the Arizona outback there, out by Stanfield, middle of nowhere. Actually, it is Stanfield at in the barbershop there. But
boob laser.
it's amazing what you can do, with nothing. And like I say, I built this to, um, I don't know, I guess I was being condescending to Kipper, because from, like I say, the schematic, it shouldn't work. Okay. And it shouldn't. And it's
Right.
only when you started moving those wires that it did. That means that you're tapping into, like antennas, okay? And you're tapping into an antenna that can be tapped into with an aperture there, a 6-foot aperture. And I have a bachelor's in electrical engineering, so I was astounded because this should not work. Using conventional electromagnetic theory, and that's where we get back to we don't know everything. We really know nothing.
Right. So it's not discovering, like I said, and we're not like just doing old stuff. There, Tesla was on to like a whole bunch of mysteries of these electromagnetic field and how it relates to gravity. Because there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot we don't know about physics. Like, admittedly, we're still. I mean, there's a lot we do know about physics, but there's a lot that we're still learning and trying to figure it out and understand. But as far as like the free energy and stuff, I just say be careful and don't trust everything. You see a lot of stuff on the internet, and I just I don't like to see people get scammed. I don't like to see people giving their money to frauds and stuff. I appreciate people who donate the super chats here on the live stream. Those are always awesome and helpful. And I hope that Steve gets some more people over to his channel who are interested in this kind of stuff and these kind of conversations. Because I mean, you got a lot of great material, 30 years worth going back, and not all of it's free just yet, but there's a ton of stuff that is free already up on your YouTube channel here. So
Well, I try to put in so much free, and then so much paid, um, and then a lot of the paid stuff will be more controversial stuff because the free stuff is what they really try to knock you on, and they try to censor you on. And I've been hit. In fact, just got hit on the 4th of this month on Bob Beck stuff. That's from 1995, and I'm pretty sure it's because it looks like he mentioned HIV, and so that just raised a red flag, and they zap you. Then you got to take your time and fight the thing. Well, I'm not going to take my time and fight it right now. I'll go back later and deal with this stuff later.
I did an interview like 3 years ago. It was 3 years old. I did an interview on a channel on it was I think Alien Girls channel, and then they went and took the video down just recently a couple weeks ago because we had said something about the pandemic and stuff. But I just can't talk about that kind of stuff at all. It's really crazy how things get censored and stuff.
Well, I notice if you put it behind a paywall, they don't bother you as much.
Yeah, I try not to censor or ban people unless they start getting really nasty and stuff. But
Well,
I try to keep an open
well, I'm talking about the censors at YouTube, though. There's certain words that they're looking for, and I had one where the guy was introducing a guy, and so he wrote the book on this one topic, and next thing you know, they banned it, and I went back and argued it, and they gave me it back. because you only mentioned it in passing. I mean, it's stupid.
Yeah.
There's no context to this stuff, and they're relying on some robot to censor you, which really ticks me off. You know, because I'm Mr. Anti artificial intelligence here. Don't trust them. I don't trust people, so how am I going to trust a computer? You know, uh,
Yeah, the AIs are not super reliable, and I agree. They lie, and just like yeah, it can't be trusted. So it's hard to know what to trust and who to trust, man. So it's like you got David Adair on here. This guy was supposed genius and all this stuff. So I don't, it's like how do you know like what's good and what's bad? What would you say? Is there anything on here that I mean, you both post everything up here, right? You don't really have a filter. There's not like you don't go through this stuff and say like, oh, this is not like our best stuff, so I'm not going to include it. You just kind of put up everything.
I consider mine an archive channel more than anything.
Just an archive, yeah. So you're not censoring. You're
Uh,
not going through here. YouTube's doing a good enough job of that on its own. Picking through and
well,
blocking.
I'm trying to keep them from doing it because I don't think they should do it. I mean, I have people on there who I believe are scams or fraud,
Right.
but I brought them on my stage and that because I'm a hardware guy and I want them to bring a hardware and show it, and people can see for themselves if this guy's real or talking BS. Because when you have a live audience, this is why it's important for our in-person conferences. When you have a real live audience, our guys will get up there and they'll ask them the tough questions.
Yeah. That doesn't happen at the controlled stuff, like where it's like you're behind the scenes. And yeah, I've tried to call into radio shows with the hard questions, and they won't let you on the air unless you're like a total dumbass. So usually I'll give them like a dumb call just to get through the screeners, so I can get on the show and then hit them with something serious. But yeah, that's awesome part about going to the conferences in person and stuff is because yeah, and then also it's face to face. People aren't going to say the same thing that that they'll say online in a chat and stuff too.
And there's something about sitting across from somebody, sharing a dinner there, um, but you can get to know them a little bit better, and you can see they're interacting with other people and that, and you know how it is. You have about a dozen conversations going on at the same table, and you're privy to all of it. That's the great thing about the conferences.
It's always fun. I went out to dinner with a bunch of guys. Nick Pope was at the table, and a bunch of the other UFO people. A bunch of UFO people. It was a fun dinner. A lot of interesting conversations, and we don't always agree on everything, but it's fun times. We're all trying to figure it out. But yeah, so I was just wondering if so there's no like. I guess the rating systems, how many views that they get, because the better ones get shared around,
But even then, you can't really tell because
Yeah.
it depends what goes viral.
Some things go we're viral for one person will pick it up on some weird obscure site and it will go, but and then these Steve's Place, meetings. These are good, man. You should have the pictures though. You should change the thumbnails on these to make it like a picture of the guest, So
It's kind of like it's the thing because I'm not even thinking about promoting it. It's just like
yeah,
60 minutes.
Go to your channel. It's good to have this to go through and do this because people go to your channel and all these look like the same. So it's like it's just just looks like the same video. Where you can go and take like screenshots of all these different guys. So that way because that way it helps me easier too. If I'm looking for the one I want, I'll be like, oh, it's got this picture on it, and I can scroll through and find it easier.
Well, maybe I might do that Wednesdays, but right now, I'm a one-person show here, and that's my weakness. I need to get more people involved. I'd like to get my magazine back up and running, but I ran out of money for that, and then COVID happened. I've had my business partners, well, the people die.
Yeah,
And
people get old. People. Yeah, it's
yeah,
part of life, man. This we got to find some young guns that are really savvy with computers and like, there's got to be someone there that wants to do on YouTube. It doesn't have the content, and we have the opposite problem. We have too much content, and and we need help with the other stuff. So yeah, we got to find some young person that's looking for that's lacking content.
that and we need a place to do this at because I'm in a small apartment here, and like I say, I have a couple hundred VHS tapes from the 1980s, 1990s from the Tesla Society. Okay, uh, I need to get converted. You know, and I need to do that. I don't want to farm them out to anywhere. I don't like my stuff to leave my site basically because, like I say, I have a hard time with trust issues. I don't trust people, and I certainly don't trust AI.
People will steal your patents and claim them as your own, and AI just takes everything and makes it its own, right? So, good reason not to trust it.
Yeah, what do you see?
Welcome, Bernie.
Elon's coming out with a car without a steering wheel and a brake. You think I'm going to ride in that thing? No way.
Right? Like, heck no. Robo taxis, it's wild. Like, I don't understand how people can sign up for that sort of stuff.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm riding a bus, okay, from LA to Phoenix, and I noticed that we drive right past the bus station. We get to the other end of town, and the bus driver goes, "Does anyone know where the bus station is?" So I had to go up front and tell the bus driver where to go to. I mean,
Wow.
that's the story of my life. Can you imagine something happening in a vehicle without a steering wheel or a brake? How do you stop it?
Right, and then once it starts getting a mind of its own, the free thinking ability or whatnot, then that's just exponentially worse. Not only can you not control it, it's going to make its own decisions on your life.
And they're doing that every day, you know. Yeah.
Steve, I got a question for you in regards to commercial patents and what's would be the best process or method of filing them for backyard inventors, for over unity stuff like that's potentially superconductive or anti-gravitic and that doesn't necessarily meet their physics.
Right. So the patent office has a problem with free energy machines and certain things like that. So how do you?
Don't claim that they're a free energy machine.
Yeah,
absolutely.
that you got to patent it as something else, and
just tell what it does without saying that it produces more energy than it has coming in.
Right, you use the technical terms and you claim that it's an open system because if it's an open system, it's not violating the second law of thermodynamics, which only applies to closed systems, right? So your open system has extra energy coming in. You're not creating it or taking it from nowhere.
And the second law, I mean, some things it just don't apply to. Like osmosis and that, and like you take a sponge and it pulls the water up to the top of the sponge, well, how does that happen?
Right.
Yeah, entropy. How is entropy conserved, and when you're adding potential energy to the system, like suppose if it creeps up.
What about like shapes with sound? Like your geometry can amplify your sound wave, right? Like makes it stronger.
Hollow cavity inside a guitar. Or
shape is everything. If you saw my show on Sunday when they were working with the Casey stuff.
Yes, I caught the second half of that.
Well, Casey was describing how to build his devices. Okay, He gives the dimensions for like
Sorry to interrupt, Steve. For reference, this is Edgar Casey or a different Casey?
Edgar Casey, the psychic.
So Edgar Casey, the sleeping prophet from 100 years ago, was designing or describing how to build free energy devices that he was channeling.
Nope. Healing devices.
Healing device. Spirit. So we got to say spiritual healing because it's energy field healing, because that's what YouTube algorithms really strike is anything that.
Well,
you can't say anything like
so it's healing your spiritual side. It's fields and energy, right?
So this is a physical healing. Okay, these are in ARE builds them. The Association for Research and Enlightenment, whatever, in Virginia Beach, they build these devices, but they built them using like amps and watts and that kind of stuff. But this wet tube here, he'll tell you how tall that tube should be, the volume of that, and the length of those rods inside of it. He don't go into volts and amps and everything. Case doesn't. So if you build it according to what he says and not try to build it like conventional stuff, it works. But so, the ARE stuff doesn't work.
What's on the inside of that cell? Is it like an electrolyte sort of cell, or is it a solid cell?
Electrolyte, I believe. What Casey says, it's in the Casey readings. It tells you what he puts in that and how much volume that needs to go in there. And the rods have to be like so long, and if you follow the instructions, you get the thing working, It's kind of like Shape Power by Dan Davison, and he starts talking about like the Beatles and that and everything and how they're like anti-gravity. And there's this guy from Russia.
Yeah, Gorbachev, right?
Yeah, Gorbachev. And on the bottom of the board are beetle wings, okay? And it's got to be the geometry of the wings.
Because that will then determine the geometry of the frequency that's going into the electrolysis reaction.
The geometry of the energy that's being driven. Okay.
Right, but did it say that those are two electrodes at the bottom that are those weights?
Well, it goes back. Okay, you have a tall tube and it has two rods that go down the center of that vase or whatever, okay? Like a battery would.
Yeah, I saw that, and then then
you have the electrolyte.
Yeah.
Okay, and I don't know what's in the electrolyte. Probably has it in the article. But if you go to my website, on the front page at the top, it'll have like exotic research, back issues, and it'll be the first one there, actually, volume 3, number 3 of exotic research, and it will be there. And there's a big write-up on that, and it kind of describes it. Yeah, if you go to the that line, right there, click on that, and sorry for the down at the bottom says wet cell. Right, and you click on that, and that's the article. It tells you all about it, a little bit about Edgar Casey. Yeah, I love this magazine. I got to get my magazine going back again. I'm a better writer than I am a speaker.
You're an amazing speaker every Sunday to begin with, so
I don't consider that, but
oh, not at all. Like, you're a great host with all like the questions you ask, how you present or let people present and stuff. You do good.
Well, that's because I'm learning.
Obviously underrated. Yeah, definitely. People are sleeping on Steve's place and what you're doing over there. I've been sleeping on it too. So I'm so caught up in everything else. I haven't even checked into any of this stuff. But
I don't get a chance to listen to these guys at my conference. But on Steve's place, I'm there and I listen to them. That's how I learn. Okay, is by listening to other people. Because I certainly don't know anything except what I observed.
Absolutely, right? It's all about learning, taking in what someone's showing and what they've been working on, hearing it, and then making sense of it, whether it's like, okay, this guy sounds like a fraud, or okay, I've seen very similar things. I can now apply this into others or retest it, which is real science, and that's why everything needs to be replicated.
Yeah. And then
Here's some more.
there, you just don't really have enough time. And I think our biggest problem we're having right now is we need to get more in-person conferences going, where people can go and see things, and play with stuff, I like when people have devices.
What we need to do, I agree with that, but an idea that's maybe more efficient that can reach more people is continue expanding the online conferences to then get all of these different inventors to your at site Tesla Tech each year, and just make sure more people get there and more people are able to actually experience it firsthand and see it, and then be inspired to start experimenting and replicating the systems themselves.
Well, I remember there was a time just before 2000. Okay, they had a thing called preparedness expos, and these people had 6 conferences or 6 expos a year. They weren't really conferences, and I used to go to all. They have them all over the country, so you didn't have to travel that far to go to one. And that's what we kind of need, is something like that going on again too, But yeah,
absolutely. Well, I guess APEC, right? You're having for the 3-year anniversary, they're doing the in-person meetup out by you, Jeremy, right, at Falcon Space there.
Yeah, there is. That's a private meetup, but yeah.
And then there's the one that Aram Murakami does with Eric Dollard. I think it's in Washington State or something every year on the free energy work in person.
Aaron didn't do one this year, and I don't think that I don't think he's going to do one next year. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. But he could change his mind and end up doing it. But you gotta have some time to prepare, And
it's a lot of work, a lot of investment and money to make them put it all together, right?
It takes a lot. My big problem for next year is I'm going through and trying to find a site for it. They want to jack my rates up 30%, and I gotta figure a way to even if they did that, it's still about 30% less than anywhere else I can get in town, except for the Indian Casino. I got to check into that. But yeah, you got to do some shopping and some planning and that and negotiating. So, okay, if I had to pay more in cash, what can I get otherwise, to make up for that? And to keep the overall cost down. And
I'm gonna aim my hardest to be able to make it out there in person this next summer. If I do one thing traveling to the States from Canada, it will be to come to Tesla Tech. And like you stated, how you're the event organizer, so there's a million things going on and going wrong all at once when events are going on. I know from experience of helping organize stuff, but it's like one thing I could help you do is we could live stream the presentations to your members only channel, right? So that it's for the paid members, and then how you a great model that you operate with your channel is how you take certain member videos or presentations and make them free and cycle them through, that then throughout the year you could cycle them so they become public a couple at a time, sort of thing.
Well, we do have a stream, but we're doing that through HowTube. Okay, and they're doing a really good
job. Right. I forgot you used HowTube.
Yeah, and he's doing a good job. I got a reasonable deal with him, and right now we switched everything from live stream to the to video on demand, and like during the conference between the speakers, right? We had Jason and Karen. They would be off on the side doing these side interviews. We got all that up there too, so we wouldn't have any dead space on the live stream.
Oh, that's amazing.
So we have all that available. And even though later on, about a year after the event, I'll put these up on YouTube, free with it, or as members only.
Heck yeah, you're already on top of it. And of course, you have it all recorded because you've been doing this for decades. And before there was even the internet streaming or anything like it, where you were doing it first or second DVD, first probably VHS. You had a bunch of them recorded and were selling.
And then the big thing though is to take these older ones and get them converted from VHS tapes into DVDs. That's a big project. I have a gentleman who has a storage unit full of videotapes, and if I had a place to do this, he'd probably just go ahead and give them to me, and I just have to give him some DVDs in return, So that's one of the things I'm working on, but I'm not going to be here too much longer. I'm 70, so we're looking at 20 years max, maybe 30 years.
Well, with all of the amazing inventors and extraordinary technology that's going on there, hopefully someone has a breakthrough that gives you an extra 50 or 100 years in the next 5 or 10.
Right now, I'm waiting for this Japanese guy to come through with the teeth growing stuff, I need some new teeth.
Oh, don't we all?
And I can't afford
Halloween right now. Like, how many people are going to lose at least one tooth over the next month?
Yeah, but see, my problem is I can't afford dentures, and they have dental work now on Medicare, but it's not enough. They don't cover dentures. I mean, it's just
all that's usually covered is just getting the tooth pulled, which it's like, great. Now it's insane.
And to get my tooth pulled, I go down to the school, at the university here, they have the dental school, and they'll pull a tooth for like $30, Sure beats 300.
That's pretty good, actually.
Yeah. We just go in there and you get in the program.
Right? Like, I forgot about that. Like, there's so many, right? Like a haircut. You need a cheap haircut, you go to the haircut school. That makes sense. You need a tooth pulled, you go to the dentist school so they can practice on you. So it's like, it's not going to be like the most trained job, but they're learning. You'll do a good job.
And when you're a soldier, you go to the VA. That's I don't feel. I didn't retire from the military, but they still take care of me, and they saved my life a couple of times. And this year, they actually drilled one of my arteries out with a high-speed drill, and you're laying there with a wire up your arm, listen to this drill, like you're in a dental chair, and I'm having this wire going through my heart, and it's doing that, and it's kind of weird, So, what can I say? Medical science is great to a point. They just
well, it's that there's the three big evil entities that need to go: big pharma, big oil, and military industrial complex. Because while big pharma, they don't look for like an actual physical cure, they look for treatments that they can continue to sell you, that it never actually cures what ails you. It just gives you a quick fix.
Well, they just want to feed you pills, and some of them do work, and the stuff that's been around that does work, they want to charge an arm or a leg for, even though it's unjustified, because the research has been done 20, 100 years ago. Why are they raising the price of an aspirin now? It's all greed.
Right, yeah, like aspirin, it's the patent for it is open and expired, right? Like
a lot of stuff, and they're always looking for like weight loss, anything with weight loss, that will get you big bucks, Let's see.
So, Steve, one of the big things that's been all over, Alex Jones has been talking about weather weapons. He says that they can control
Yes, I wanted to bring this
hurricanes.
up. And Steve was
And
talking about this yesterday. You brought this up that you, like 20 or 30 years ago, were exposed to the technology, correct?
Yeah, they had a thing called HARP, high frequency
Oh, yeah.
active auroral program, research program up in Alaska. And
he wrote the book on it, one of the first books on it, right?
yeah.
Well, that was the original. Then they claimed it's deactivated, but now it's just a black project, and they've built like 20 more bigger arrays around the world. If I'm
I
not
don't think
mistaken.
they built bigger arrays because our trend is to make things smaller. That's what Americans do.
Right, more powerful, I should say.
But I don't think they're more powerful. This country is going. These people are simply going backwards. I mean, Boeing can't seem to build a plane anymore. And we got men to the moon, but now we got a couple of them stuck on a space station. What's happening here? I mean, people are forgetting how to do stuff.
Right. Or was it a different technology other than propellant rocket fuel that was used, and something that was an alternative propulsion that powered it on the moon and back?
Oh, I think they did okay on the moon. I worked on the space shuttle, and I know that we built enough parts to build 5 space shuttles. And when they had enough parts to build another space shuttle, but the government refused to let the Rockwell and Lockheed and them go in and build that. That was back in. Gee, that would have been. When did I go to school? Forgetting here.
Sorry, there's someone from commenting from your channel, Steve, asking about an old video where the guy was autistic and he had created a one-wire system or something like that, and it was a recording of a recording. But sorry to interrupt.
I wouldn't know what that would be. If they could ever get me a can I figure out
like you've been doing it for 30, 40 years. You got hundreds, if not thousands, of different presentations and whatnot. It's next to impossible. But sorry, yeah, I got off topic there. A bit more about HARP, or like just steering hurricanes, or now atmospheric rivers, stuff like that.
Well, back in, let's see, I'm thinking, let me think here. It was back in 94, 95. I was getting these phone calls in the middle of the night, at work. During the day, I worked for Unisys, okay? My electrical engineering job. At night, I put together the magazine and worked for Tesla, right? And I get these phone calls, this guy by the name of Anthony English. He wanted to do a presentation at my conference, and it was like, I can't. We're full, I got a full schedule and everything. I can let you go in our do a presentation in our poster room, And he said, well, okay, but I had to contact the mayor of Colorado Springs and have them have the snow plows on standby. During the conference, I'm going, ain't no way I'm going to do that, I said, you can do your, you can do a presentation there and that, And then he went and was telling me about how they could control hurricanes, with these patents and everything. I said, well, why don't you send me something in writing? So he sent me the Eastland patents. And the Eastland patents are the patents that form the basis for HARP. And with that, he's saying, well, we could control these hurricanes and that, That year, we had like 11 hurricanes head towards the United States and then march right up the coast and never touch the coast. He was supposed to do a demonstration and speak at the conference in August. I'm at work in April, and all of a sudden I'm getting these phone calls from like Pete Field, which is the Air Force in Colorado Springs, NORAD, okay, the mayor of Colorado Springs, they're all telling me uh, I can't black out the city for 2 hours because that's what this guy said he was going to do, blacking out, to adjust the weather.
That-
And I got calls from the commanding general at Fort Carson's office there. I was getting phone calls from all over the place at work, and I just told him, look, this guy claims he's going to do this from California, and I have no control about what this guy is going to do, except that I'm letting him do a presentation at my conference, And so anyway, come to the time of the show, it was a weird thing because we were supposed to have this giant lightning show. We had a huge Tesla coil, 2.5 stories high. We had a crane to lift a guy into it, with a Faraday cage, who's going to be zapped, right? And this thing was so powerful, we had to dig a trench across the road to the city power main to hook into it for this device. And it required that much power. But because we were so good connection with the city, they went and let us do it. They didn't even charge us for it, because we had our own guys do it. Because some of our guys were city employees anyway. We were well liked in Colorado Springs. The day that was supposed to happen, a storm come out of nowhere, just not even a storm, one cloud in the entire sky.
Like a clear day, and just a giant cloud forms out of nothing into a storm cloud.
Just dropped so much rain into the stadium, it was knee high. Okay, coming out of that stadium, there's that much water.
So I've got one question about, we see supposedly from HAARP these giant holes that are punched through the ionosphere and stratosphere and through the clouds. If it's actually making a hole through the from like the outer.
Well, where do you see these holes at? Because I've never seen that.
There's a bunch of them. Dane Wigington on geoengineeringwatch.org has them up, but they trend all the time on right now on TikTok and Instagram, with everyone talking about weather manipulation. Every so often they come up again, but it's like you'll see these full white clouds and then a perfect blue hole through them, and lots of times there's a couple of them and stuff.
Oh, it's not really a punching a hole in the ionosphere. It's just making a cloud with a particular shape. But see, we had that stuff happening back in the 80s with Bearden. I was talking about the Soviet woodpecker thing, and that year that we had the massive floods in 1993 in the Midwest there, the whole Midwest was flooded. It was a huge lake, actually, and that was they thought was due to the Soviets, but we can only manipulate to a certain point, okay. But now I think they've lost control. I think they've actually lost control because the physics have changed. All this stuff is designed. I mean, it's like when you design a piece of equipment to measure volts, and you're out here and you hit something with a megavolt, it's going to blow your machine up, okay? Quite frankly. And
we're doing that with nature and how Earth's circuits work, right?
I think the opposite is we're trying to control it, but we have a thing called global warming, which is real, is boiling these oceans, and it's changing the physics of this planet like we never believed. That's why we're having so much earthquakes. Water is pretty heavy mass. 1 gallon of water weighs 8 pounds. When they built the Three Gorges River dam in China,
it changed the rotation by a little bit. Right?
Okay, but now look what's happening here. You have these oceans getting super hot. When you have something getting super hot, a couple of things happen. Number one, it's allowing the air to hold more water, and it's pulling it up. It's evaporating it faster. But at the same time, when the hole where the vortex are, it's dropping the air pressure. What happens in low air pressure, okay, and a vacuum, everything gets accelerated. Your evaporation is getting accelerated, so it's throwing even more water up in the air. Do you realize that in Illinois, okay, 1 acre of corn will throw up 3,000 gallons of water, 3 to 4,000 gallons of water per day. Did you realize that? That's a company. You go outside, in Illinois in August, you could barely breathe because it's so moist. It's that mad.
Evaporating up from it all, yeah.
Well, here you got out in an ocean, you're over open water, super hot. You're pulling all this water up, throwing it up there, okay? And all this water. And now, can you imagine how many gallons of water this is? Okay, and then you have that mass. Now you got to start thinking in terms of mass. And it's in a vortex, it's like having a giant flywheel up there, actually. And so when it comes out, and it hits land and everything, that's a mass hitting a mass. And so I don't think they can control it anymore like they thought they could. It's like taking a power steering unit designed for Toyota and trying to use it on a Big Mac truck. It ain't going to work too well,
And not just that, it's like taking an electric Toyota motor and trying to put it like on a GMC sedan gas power sort of thing, right? Like completely different technologies, not integratable.
So now you have all this massive coming down, and then the water's just getting dumped on the ground, and the ground just never can't handle it. But I live in Queen Valley in Arizona. One day it rained. In 1 hour it dropped 4 inches. It's the first time I've ever seen the signal from the satellite, cable satellite, actually go out. It was that dense, So we're starting to deal with masses and volumes and densities like we've never known before, and it's going to get worse.
Right, and like that's an area that gets like what, a half an inch of rain per year, and it got 4 inches in how long, or something ridiculous like that. Like,
it gets 4 to 10 inches a year, but this year it got 4 inches in 1 hour, and it flooded the whole town was flooded, because the desert is like hard baked, and it flooded out the sewage plants, And Queen Valley's in the middle of nowhere, and it wasn't that big of a thing. It was for an RV park, but still, it took out a couple of houses down. They had to condemn them because the sewage got in them and everything. But it was rough. It washed out a couple of bridges and that, And that's the thing about the desert, You got to be constantly aware of the weather around you, and even 20 miles away, because it can rain a cloudburst 20 miles away, and you're walking across dry land, all of a sudden you get hit with a flash flood. So
absolutely. And because it's so dry, the water doesn't absorb into the soil, so it just all goes through. And I've experienced flash floods in the Badlands of Alberta growing up and stuff, but when you see rain and clouds, water, you get the heck out of the valleys. That's rule number 1 for sure. So one last question before we move on to a couple other questions I have for you about the weather modification. The cloud seeding and what we're seeing as are called the chemtrails. Personally, I witnessed and I've noticed where I live in Alberta, Canada, there'll be a plane that goes and it'll fly in a complete square with with the chemical trail, whatever these nanoparticle exhaust is coming out of it. And then it'll connect the square, and then usually either it or another couple planes will do an X through it. And then within 15, 20 minutes, all the cloud cover that's in that area dissipates. And they always seem to do it on cloudy days. And they only seem to do it right over the city area and surrounding little area, and then let everywhere else remain cloud or not fly over. It's strange. So could something like that, these electric metal nanoparticles, if these chemtrails are for weather modification, could they potentially be laying a track for the hurricane or the storm or whatnot to travel along if they do a whole bunch of them up there or something?
and I wouldn't know what they're trying to do up there. You know, what I would say is that what we need is be able to get more air samples from what they're dropping up there, because I don't trust the government for anything. You know, they did experiments, you know, back in the 50s and that, where they were spraying aerosols on the West Coast to see how fast they could spread germs in that, you know. And so I don't trust them anything. And I do know that there's a lot of pollution though, and I do understand, you know, the thing on as far as contras also exist. And I think there's so much air traffic up there. A lot of stuff is up there as contras. But I do know that they spray stuff all the time, and you just don't know what they're spraying. You know, and let's see.
Yeah, it's documented right outside of Calgary, Alberta, where I live. There's a small little airport that the insurance companies use anytime there's like a giant thunderhead in the summer that will produce hail. There's the rich area that's right to the west of the city, right next to this airport. So they'll go up and they'll seed it with that silver, silver.
I think it is.
Right, some silver chemical compound nano thing to break up the hail. And it's like I'm right at the end, so I'm like on the west side of the city, but like right after that rich area, right when you get to the city. But I seem to luck out that we never get the heavy hail. It's always extremely light where I am. And then to the north of us, it's like it just gets smoked, and like the houses are having to redo their siding and shingles like every second year, as well as the same to the south and the north of where I live. It's
and I like to think they know what they're doing, but I don't think they really know what they're doing. And you know what? One of the earliest people, as far as like weather control goes with electricity, was Tesla. We noticed in his Colorado Springs lab that when he ran his coils and that formed water on it, and so that's where he started getting the idea of whether electricity could control the weather too. You know, so.
Okay, so you're originally major, or your schooling education works as an electrical engineer. So right. You actually have the academic and practical understanding of the electrical physics and building of it. But then you've also applied it to all of these different inventors in the fringe. Have you had much experience, or can you describe this cold electricity that apparently Tesla worked on and a lot of people have worked on? Have you seen that at all, or can you describe that?
Well, that's what we were just describing, that with that Kipper motor. Okay, so when you had that 3 amp motor driving that 12 amp motor, there should have been heat. Okay, it should have been hot. Okay, and the weirdest thing is, when it was in the mode, you know, where it was pulling out all that extra energy up, okay, it was cold. I mean, you could touch the thing, it was actually cold, you know. And Peter Lemon said that's cold electricity. And but then when it went to dying, something happened. Okay, after 3 weeks, something happened, and all of a sudden it died and shifted. Okay, and all of a sudden that motor got real hot, real fast. You touch it, it burned your hand. Okay.
All right. So then from that, when it's cold and operating, it's an endothermic reaction where it's like literally sucking heat, thermal energy from the environment and somehow transferring that into the kinetic or the electrical energy. But then when it's hot, it's doing the exact opposite, and it's getting back to resist.
I wouldn't read anything into it except like when it was working right, it's cold, and when it died, it got hot real fast. We're talking within a minute. Okay. And that's what you would have expected it to be that hot in the first place. You know, because think about it, that much work is trying to twist, okay, and couldn't do it, you know. All the energy you're putting into is actually going into heat.
Well, friction, right? Like, absolutely, and the amps. Absolutely.
And that's comes weird because almost like the bigger motor, the 12-volt thing, was pulling that little motor along, you know. So, yeah.
And is that a similar design? Sorry, I was listening to it but not watching. Is it similar to the homopolar motor style of things, or different? No, completely different on that.
No, it's way different because this is a motor generator. You have a little permanent motor driving a alternator.
Okay, gotcha.
As what you're looking at is a M machine, which is basically a spinning disc, and the current's thrown to the outside, and it should be 1 volt, I think, on the outer perimeter there. I had one of those M machines that I sat in my office one time. Was at the museum. It's given to us. But there's so much stuff out there, and we just don't know what we're as much as we think we know. And that's to come. I have a lot of ideas I like to test out. Things like you have like a solar cell, and you have like a magnet, and if you take a magnet and you put it behind a piece of metal, right, it induces a voltage across that metal, right? So what would happen if you put it behind the solar cell? Now, would that create the 0.7 volts you need for that gap to open up for electrons to be transferred across? That's things I like to test out, and
Absolutely.
Just think, if all of a sudden all the sunlight went to produce a current instead of that initial 0.7 volts,
So you won't lose all of the energy from the converter, right? From DC to AC.
Well, not converter. Okay, you have like on a solar cell, right? You have like a material, and you have to have 7/10 of a volt for the current to flow through that, like a diode. Okay.
Okay.
So all of a sudden that voltage is there, but then does it automatically just go straight into that?
It's just so inefficient.
There's just so many questions out there. I have good ideas I like to try. So,
how much experience or presenters with the Ormus or the monoatomic materials?
We used to have more, but Joe Blankenship, you know him? Remember him? Or he's no longer with us.
Okay.
But he was a great source. Him and Dr. Malusky, and John Reinhardt. I can't even get hold of John Reinhardt. I don't know if he's still alive or not. All of these guys who know this stuff are gone. But if you go to, I'm thinking 1993 Global Science, David Hudson, he's on my, he was the first presentation I seen on that. I was at that conference when he presented all that.
Sorry, which conference was this?
I think it was in my Global Sciences.
Okay, right.
Yeah, David
Hudson's the original, right? So
yeah, and this would be one of the first presentations he did on it. So you might want to go check. He might give away some secrets he didn't intend to. That's the way it works. But
yeah, because there we go. Got
is that your Ormus?
Yeah, so this is the white. The white stuff I call monoatomic single atom, and I make it out of a pure gold, 24 karat gold anode, 24 karat gold cathode. If I'm making monatomic gold, if I'm making monatomic silver, I use 99.999% silver anode and cathode. If I'm doing zinc, I use 100% zinc anode cathode. If I'm doing copper, I use 100% copper anode and cathode, and I get that all of the metals into this pure white state that is I believe the single monoatomic atom. But then if it oxidizes, it turns blue instantly, which is diatomic, because you have the metal plus the oxygen, and it becomes instantly toxic, diatomic. You're going to die because it's going to collect in you and give you heavy metal poisoning because, well, it's no longer the single atom state.
Okay.
And then there's also, it can turn into the red, which I believe is a hydride or a hydroxide that I also get out of so first it does the white state, then it oxidizes, then you can get it into this red state. And the ancient alchemists called it the mercury state as the red state. And then after that, that's what precipitates off as the ormus or small materials, but then the metal itself, as Isaac Newton describes, turns into this pink crystalline state where it actually sparkles and reflects light. And Isaac Newton states when it's in that state, you can actually transmutate it from one metal element into another. But yeah, look, you're trying to I got to file a commercial patent for my process of making it, because I'm doing it through electrolysis methods instead of chemical reactions, which is exponentially cheaper and less work of having to do all the rinses of the acids out and the breaking downs of the metal, where just a very small amount of electricity and the right mixture of an electrode can turn it into the pure white state. And when I get it in this pure white state and I harvest it and separate it, it will literally, I've got samples where it stays pure white in this fluffy monoatomic state for over a decade now. It won't oxidize. It's in the actual process of when it's coming off of the metal determines whether it's the single metal atom or if it has an oxygen on chemical into it, or the hydride and stuff. And then I found this was it was white, made out of 24 karat gold. I left it in the sun and it turned purple. So not sure about that. I know there's purple gold. I've also got the white zinc to turn into purple, and I've also got the white silver to turn into purple. The silver went purple when I left it out in the moon, coincidentally.
Well, the purple is what, rhodium?
No. It was the white material that was made from the 24 karat gold. When I put the white 24 karat gold ormus out in the sun, after a few days, it turned purple. When I did with the silver and left it out, it turned purple as well. And then I also got it to do it with the zinc reaction. And I think it was when I put a double negative into it, potentially, that caused that. But yeah, so it's like when they turn into these different colored states, they'll then usually stay in that color and indefinitely and stable. And that I really wonder if this red state is actually like the red meta material state, because the ancient alchemists said it was like mercury. There's all these rumors of the red mercury. I'm not saying that this is mercury, but it could be a hydroxide or hydride layer to the outside metal that can then activate as potentially superconductor metamaterial state.
Well, have you ever had any of your work assayed?
Sorry, say again?
Have you ever had any of your work assayed?
No, because that's what I'm holding off on. I want to get a patent, put the patents out of how I make it before I send them off, because
I think we lost you.
Oh, sorry, muted myself accidentally. I need to get the patents out so that you don't publish it all out there and magically might have made metamaterials for pennies and then the idea gets taken from you, right? So I've been holding off sending it out to labs until I can get some sort of potential ownership over my methods of it.
Well, the big thing to watch when you do your patent is where you make the claims. That's what you have to be real careful about what you're claiming, because that's the only thing in the patent that's worth anything, is the claims.
Okay. I appreciate that. I'm trying to get as much information on that as possible and do that as one of my next steps. Another important part of the red state of so not just it turning into the particles, but the solid metal will stay in the suspended red state, and that when I put a couple of the suspended red metals into a saltwater electrolyte reaction, all of a sudden all of the water starts bubbling simultaneously and producing hydrogen simultaneously, triggering some sort of electrolysis reaction without any input energy going in. It's like I've disconnected the in and out voltage, and just having these red state metals in the water somehow triggers more hydrogen production and more electrolysis out of it. I can pull up a little video showing that if you want. Or we can save it for another time. I'm getting off topic.
Yeah. I do want to say one thing, though, is your materials, if you take them, get them assayed, that shouldn't affect your patent anyway. All they're telling you is what you got.
Yeah. I'm working on putting together a package to ship to Bob Greenyear, as I trust his work a lot, and he has the equipment to, because that's another potential issue. Is it's like, if you send it out to some lab, can they just obscure it? Because David Hudson talks about how a lot of the monoatomic ormus just doesn't register as any metal, or has all these different anomalous effects and stuff, so they couldn't do the right spectroscopy on it and everything. So it's like, do we even have the technology to verify what this stuff is, sort of thing?
Well, I'd be more worried about what it would be recognized as conventional. I have a friend. He has access to like a million tons of not mine tailings, but slag. Okay, which is the waste when they go to convert everything. And if you take it down and get an assay done, which we do, it will tell you what's in it, and generally it comes up with nothing. And then after we run our process, okay, we have a secret process, we run that through, we get assays, and all of a sudden all these minerals and everything pop out of there, okay, because we're restoring the corrupted metals that's in that slag, okay. And so that's what you want to see. What you're doing is if you're actually getting something out of there. You don't have to take them the before material, just take them the after, and they'll tell you what's in there. That's all you want. I don't know how much it costs. We use a place down here, right down the street, from our processor there. But and trusting is hard. I tell you, it's hard trusting people these days.
Right. But that's why we're recording it all, putting it out there public. And I'm gonna try. I'll make it to Tesla Tech 2025, and I will bring some of my materials down, and then I can leave it there or get it tested while we're down there, hopefully.
Or meet some people who know what the hell they're doing down there. That would be able to help. Because people know a lot more than I do. But I'm just lucky to have a lot of friends. Yeah.
So one actual experiment I did with this stuff is like the colloidal water from the top, because the monoatomic or the ormus will dissolve into it. I water my gardens with it, and my vegetable garden, the segments that I've been using the gold silver water on is usually, for the last 3 years, has been on average 2.5 to 3 times larger than the other side of the garden that just has regular water, but the exact same seeds, the exact same sunlight, and dirt and everything.
And is this magnetic material or just colloidal silver material?
Well, it's colloidal gold, silver, zinc that I use. So I combine those 3 white monoatomics from when I make them, then put them into a jar, rinse out all the electrolyte about 10 times. Then after that, I start filling it with water, let it sit for a day or two, and then pour out the top of the water each time, which should have dissolved some of it, right?
Okay. And you live in what, Alberta?
Yes, sir.
Doesn't it get cold up there?
Yes, it definitely does. It's already freezing. We literally ate our last salad out of the garden yesterday because frost happened last night. Oh, it's depressing.
Down here it's 95 degrees.
Oh, well, that's almost too hot, but I'm not going to complain. I would take that over freezing any day.
Well, I will, because it's supposed to have been this a month ago. And we've been at 100 for a month too long or more. And that's I'm saying global warming's here. Everything's getting warmer. You know, the question is, where's it going to end up at? You know, like I'm saying, you have this massive amounts. You know, nature's moving energy like we've never seen before. You know, and it's changing the potential, which is the heat, into kinetic, which is the wind and the hurricanes. You know, look at the effects it's having. And I think it's affecting the Earth's planetary system, like as far as earthquakes and that goes, because you're shifting all this mass. And when you have all this ice melting, you have tons of ice sitting on land, and then that melts. Okay, all of a sudden it's like a weight lifting off it, and that land wants to pop up. And so you have all this shifting going on right now. I think, you know, like we have a lot about Earth changes on the Global Sciences conferences. Scallion, I think the guy's name was, who was really into it. And I think that's what we're seeing, and that's what's causing it. You know, and we got thermal runaway, and maybe some of it's man-made, but we also got all the solar stuff happening too. You know,
I was going to ask about the solar stuff because Nassim Haramein has claimed that in 2001, the sun didn't do its polar flip after the 11-year cycle. And then in 2012, again, it didn't do the pole reversal. It pulsed instead. And then last year, 2023, would have been the next 11-year cycle, and the poles didn't flip last year. Now they're saying we're going into some new maximum that's going to last even longer, but it should have reset, and the poles should have flipped again last year, no? The magnetic poles.
I'm not that up on the solar stuff, except right now we're having massive solar storms there, and you should be seeing a pretty good light show up there.
Well, yeah, that's the one good thing about Canada now that we're going into a solar maximum, whatever's causing it. From my own backyard, the last 3 nights, absolutely epic. Purples, reds, greens. Regularly, it's like the most we'd ever see, like as a child, was like just green, but now it's like the full palette of a rainbow. It's wild.
Are you making a video of any of it?
I got a bunch of pictures. I need to do a video of it. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's just maybe just leave one sitting out there all night. Then you can go through and pick out the most interesting stuff.
Yeah. So my dad's friend actually lives just north of the city, out in the country a little bit, and he's been doing that. So I'm gonna collect some of his videos. He's given me permission, just waiting for him to send them over, of actual time lapse. And yeah, they're absolutely stunning.
I wished I lived just that far north just to see that one time, you know. Put on my bucket list.
There's pictures of the purple red northern lights over the Grand Canyon from a couple days ago.
But the problem is, well, I don't live close to the Grand Canyon anymore either.
Right.
I need to, I don't know, pick a time when they have a really big one and get up there. I think it'd be as interesting as the solar eclipse. You know. Okay, so
Tesla Tech 2025. This one is going to be. Let's try to hype it up now and make this one the biggest one ever. I don't know. I think that would be great if we could get more people interested, because the conferences are dying along with the planet.
And
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 half
see
the people.
if they
Must
come
be
up to my
biased.
YouTube channel and become subscribers. Because I post something every night. If you're a subscriber and you get notified, and it's free, okay. I'm up to 18,000. I'm nowhere close. Where are you at? 100,000?
I've been stuck at 99,000 for years.
Yeah, we need to get all these.
I've been stuck at 9,350 for 2 years now. One time I went on to Dutch Sense channel. He had 700,000 subscribers, and I saw my stats go up 1,500 subscribers that day, and then drop 1,500 subscribers that day as well. Just crazy.
You gotta stop talking about the certain things, man. I don't know.
Well,
I don't know. Maybe we could talk about them more. We'll go to Rumble.
what I do is I take and I try to have a new video come online about twice a week right now. That's to be subscribers, and then when I do a members only one, it comes online immediately. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's how mine works.
I gotta start doing some members only content here, man. We're gonna start it up real soon.
Yeah.
Any questions for the audience from Steve? We got about 10 minutes left.
Boo
before I wanna wrap
Blazer
this up.
asking me about if the suspended fluff metals react to external magnets. No, and even when I take iron ferrite and turn it into the white monoatomic, it also loses its magnetism. Quite wild.
So anyway, I think we're going to have it. Well, I know we're going to have the conference in Albuquerque. I like Albuquerque because it's 90 degrees at a time when it's 120 here. So I'm definitely going to be out of town. Yeah. And it's going to be August 6th to the 10th. And I should probably know right after the election exactly where it's going to be at and how much it's going to cost. Yeah. I think people right now are kind of walking on pins and needles. I will be at a conference this week, though. There's a biomed conference here in Vegas, and that would be David Farman puts that on, and he combines biomedical as one side of the room. The other side is UFO technology and secret space program and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to go there and have a table or booth, like a whole booth. So if you get a chance, if you're in the area, stop by and see us, you know. And
so sorry, before last time I will interrupt. A couple things that I actually wanted to invite both you, Steve, as well as Jeremy, and then also with Tim Ventura on two projects I'm launching. One being the Burn online conference. It's the Breakthrough Energy Research Network conference, which it's essentially going to be in parallel with APAC because it's to get the technology to create the energy to power the warp drives and the anti-gravity sort of stuff. And then, well, Steve, you've got just so many connections, all of them, and from like Moray B. King to just literally thousands you can name. It's ridiculous how much you've done. You're awesome. We need to bring you into it. But if we can set it up, and maybe even if you want, would be down for also with APEC, if you want to join the multi-streams, even just adding it to your members only section or something where we can start promoting each other's, well, because it's not even our presentation, just the community's work more and more, and get it out there. And then on each one, promote the in-person video or conference with all of the online conferences, right? Something like that.
Yeah, I just got to put together some kind of mechanism so it kind of does it on its own without me doing anything.
Yeah, we can set it all up through StreamYard that way, 100%. And then the second one is Jeremy has often been talking about how we need the Manhattan 2.0 project. And I say APEC and this whole community launches the Moon Project 2 with the goal of getting the first person to get some sort of craft to the moon without fossil fuel or jet combustion or propulsion.
I think the Air Force has some of this already.
Guaranteed they do, right? So it's like it's about the civilians getting it done, right? The first civilians get something to the moon.
Like when I worked on the space shuttle thing and that, I could spend a lot of time drinking coffee. Those guys from Rockwell, boy, they could drink coffee. But we had all the parts to build another one. They wouldn't let them build it. Okay, but now you have this guy Elon out here, reinventing the wheel basically, and spend all this money. But if you notice what happened,
wheel,
the military pulled out of the space shuttle program. That's how come they had to shut the thing down. But the military,
being in space from the military perspective, you don't give up the high ground. When they canceled the shuttle, which was their one reusable thing, it makes zero sense unless they had something else, right?
Exactly. And I believe it's the Aurora, and they had that.
It's
was in 1980 when I went to college, 1984. Okay. And they had the drawings and that, and those are the posters I handed out, and they wanted the posters back, because the stuff was classified, but I didn't pass them out, you see. And so I think that's up and running. They just don't talk about it.
It's really weird that like Elon bought out Twitter. I was banned on Twitter for a while, and I got some stuff goes through, but then I don't know. I still feel like I'm kind of shadow banned on Twitter a little bit too. But I'm not.
Guaranteed.
Oh yeah.
I feel like they're they're all. This is technology. This technology is legit, and they're all trying to get it before us or keep a wraps on it or something, man.
They already have it or have the understanding of it, and just don't want the world getting it for sure.
Well, that's why we're here.
It's really happening, and they're hiding it from us. Don't trust these people, and don't trust them when they tell you it's free speech, because free speech only keeps the government from shutting you up. A private corporation can shut you up anytime, and so when they have all these platforms and the private platforms, I'm more worried than that. I would rather see a government support one, because that's when the First Amendment will kick in and they couldn't censor you. You can say anything you want on shortwave and they won't block it. Did you know that? And they won't block it because it's protected by treaty. Okay, in the 20s, they all signed this big treaty where they want to block these signals. So that's to come, you say anything you want in shortwave. That's to come back in the 90s and that the the underground stuff is all being broadcast on shortwave. The Tesla Society even had a shortwave broadcast, So,
that's
easy. 2 minutes left, guys. I just want to say thank you, everyone in the audience, for being such an awesome chat and throwing some really good questions and stuff at us. Guys, please check out Steve's place over at Tesla Tech. His channel on YouTube here, Tesla Tech 333. Search for Tesla Tech on YouTube. You'll find it. Also, teslatech.info for Steve's website. Tons of good stuff on there, good resources and information. How can people reach out to you directly, Steve? You have any way that people can get a hold of you and in touch with you through the website, or what was
Steve at teslatech.info.
Steve at teslatech.info. You heard it right there. So you can email him. Get in the network, guys. They're looking for speakers for 2025. We're looking for presentations. You got a paper, you got a presentation, put a PowerPoint together, get some slides, get some information out. Bring your free energy machine. We like hardware over hot air. So if you got an invention or something to show off, man, find a way to get it down to Albuquerque next year. And disclosure is imminent.
Disclosure through open sourcing breakthrough technology.
That's it. We're doing it, man. Right here. You guys, thank you for subscribing. Be sure to subscribe to Bernie over at Crypto Alchemist, Alien Scientist here on YouTube, and Tesla Tech over at Steve's Place. Guys, the revolution is here. It won't be televised. It won't be on your mainstream media. So tune in and subscribe.
But it will remain on Rumble and hopefully YouTube.
Awesome. Thank you, and have a great night.
See you guys.